Well, good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop on this Wednesday, July 23rd. Wild that we're in the last week of the month. Full 6 months in to 2025. What we're going to tackle today, we've got to get to a conversation about maps. Even though Illinois secured its 10-year map back in 2021 and 2022. It was a big fight. Gerrymandering, a big question. Well, Texas is looking to do something to change their maps midway through that 10-year cycle, and Governor Pritzker sounding off on that. We'll actually be joined live by State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, expecting him to join us via video chat so we can talk with him about the issue of fair maps. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. We also got to get to the issue of transit funding and the failed measure that apparently is dead in the water that would tax every retail delivery and real estate transfer tax to fund a $700+ million fiscal cliff for the state's public transit agencies. Some calling for a special session, others saying that, there's still a lot of work to be done to get to some terms that everybody can agree on. So we'll tackle that as well. But also, we've got to get to the latest in the back and forth over enforcing the nation's immigration laws and the reaction from Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson to Trump administration border czar Tom Homan, saying that they're going to flood the zone of sanctuary cities. So that's coming up here with Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning as we bring you Illinois in Focus daily. Each and every weekday morning, you can subscribe here on YouTube. You can get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. But don't forget, you can get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning at thecentersquare.com. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson saying the full force of city government going to crack down on smoking on public transit. But when asked about the federal government going a full force of federal government to flood the zone of sanctuary cities, Johnson said that he's pushing back against that. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus Daily. And you can get the headlines in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com and click on newsletter, and you'll be able to sign up today. All right, so earlier this week on Monday in New York, Trump border czar Tom Homan was with DHS Secretary Kristi Noem after an ICE officer was shot off duty, but highlighting the dangers there are of non-citizen migrants in the United States who are criminals beyond just crossing the border illegally. So here's Homan saying that, hey, sanctuary cities, you didn't want ICE on your streets, but because you're not cooperating with law enforcement in the federal level by having local jails call and say, hey, we've got a non-citizen migrant here, and you can come and pick them up. We picked him up on this crime or that crime. But sanctuary jurisdictions aren't doing that in Illinois, for instance. Cook County and the city of Chicago, they have measures in place that prohibit local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration officials. Homan said, well, that just means they're going to have to flood the zone and be in the streets.
And I'm going to work very hard for Secretary Noem to keep President Trump's promise and his commitment several weeks ago that sanctuary cities are now our priority. We're going to flood the zone. You don't want to let us in the jail to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of a jail You want to release them into the street, which makes it unsafe for the community, makes it unsafe for the officer, makes it unsafe for the alien. Anything can happen on a street arrest. So what we're going to do, we'll have more agents in New York City to look for that bad guy. So sanctuary cities get exactly what they don't want, more agents in the community and more agents in the work site. If we can't arrest that bad guy in the safety and security of the county jail, then we'll arrest him in the community, and we'll arrest him in the jail. And when we arrest him in the community, if he's with others that are in the country illegally, they're coming too.
You know, a lot of things can happen on the street, he said, and it's safer to arrest the criminal illegal aliens in jail where local officials are able to determine that they are here illegally and then contact ICE and come and get them. Well, Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday at an unrelated event, he was asked about Homan's comments and pushed back and said that they are not welcome in Illinois.
Well, they've been saying this since, November, December of last year. And of course, they have been attacking people in the city of Chicago. I think that if they were doing their jobs, they would do their job everywhere in the country. But again, the job being making sure people get due process. If you're in fact going to detain them, arrest them, take them away from their families, and sometimes secret them away and send them to foreign gulags. So I oppose much of what they're trying to do because, in fact, it is unconstitutional. But I'm aware that the president, that Tom Homan, have been targeting the city of Chicago in particular. And that's obviously something that when you're attacking the people who live here, who are residents here, many people who've been here for decades, paying taxes, law-abiding, raising their children, good members of their community, when you're attacking those people in my state, I don't want you here.
So the governor saying he doesn't want ICE here if they are going to be, as he said, secreting people away to, quote, gulags in foreign countries. Somebody pointing out in the live chat thought Chicago and Illinois was a welcoming state. The governor saying you're not welcome here.
That is why today I signed an executive order.
We've got Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson also, who yesterday held a news conference. And I was anticipating he was going to be asked about this, right? I was anticipating that he was going to be asked about Homan's comments. And he was eventually. But he started out his news conference talking about trying to eradicate smoking on public transit. And he railed against smoking on public transit, saying a full force of Chicago government is going to crack down on people smoking on public transit.
That is why today I signed an executive order launching a full force of government approach to accelerate positive trends and to build a safer CTA system with a focus on creating a smoke-free public transit system. A full force of government approach to community safety citywide is resulting in historic declines in crime and violence. And we're confident that the full force of government approach will ensure a reliable, accessible, smoke-free, and safe public transit system. Public awareness and messaging campaigns to educate residents on the detrimental effects of smoking and particularly secondhand smoke, and an assessment of other resources that CDPH and DFSS could offer to discourage smoking on trains. There's nothing more excruciating and debilitating than walking onto a train and you don't feel safe and secure, not to mention you have to inhale, or not have to, but you're subject to secondhand smoke. I'm fed up with this. You know, the fact that we have families who are using public transportation day in and day out. Our young people are about to return to school, and to have families on trains and buses and can't have a reasonable, sensible, comfortable ride because someone is smoking, right? This is unacceptable. As a city, we're better than this. And so there has to be a deeper level of accountability. And when it comes to the safety and the well-being of working families in this city, I'm going to do whatever is necessary to bring the full force of government to make sure that families and riders have a comfortable ride on our transportation system.
So we'll talk about the transportation system and the funding for it later on in this show. But just to the issue of using the full force of government to crack down on people smoking on public transit in Chicago. Didn't realize it was that big of an issue, but Johnson obviously leading that open-ended news conference with the issue of an executive order to have the full force of government crack down on smoking. But when you look at the full force of government to enforce federal immigration laws, Johnson is not down with that. As you heard Pritzker say, those who are looking to, as he characterized it, harm Illinoisans aren't welcome in Illinois. And he's referring to federal immigration officials who are having to go to the streets to enforce immigration because local law enforcement are prohibited under laws that Governor Pritzker supports to prohibit law enforcement from working with federal immigration officials, meaning there's going to be more people in the streets enforcing federal immigration law. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says that they are going to continue to resist and not cooperate with federal immigration officials.
The city of Chicago is a welcoming city. We've been that for 40 years. Threats from the federal government at this moment, clearly we're not intimidated by this. If the President of the United States was actually sincere about his efforts to bring some understanding and clarity around immigration policy, he would actually move forward with policy. These people are just so unserious. And what makes it worse is that because they're not serious, it makes them a greater threat. But the city of Chicago will remain firm in our position as a welcoming city.
But is the city taking any steps in the event that federal agents do flood Chicago?
We're a welcoming city. Period and point blank. We're not going to be intimidated or buckle under some threat that's coming from an individual that can hardly tie his shoes and bend over.
So the mayor's saying that the federal government's not serious, and that they're not going to be intimidated by Trump or Homan in any of this. Obviously, we'll see how the numbers turn out with Homan saying they're going to flood the zone with immigration enforcement officials. But then it got to some pretty heated Q&A. William Kelly, an independent reporter up in Chicago, credentialed member of the Chicago media, asked a question of Johnson that Johnson didn't find appropriate, and they actually kind of cut Kelly's mic off.
You have stated over and over and over again that you don't want ICE in Chicago. If that had been Stacey, if that had been your wife Stacey's body that had been decapitated,
right. That's not an appropriate question. Yeah.
Please move on. Really, the people of Chicago are asking me to ask you this very specific question. Had that been your wife Stacey, would you want ICE to pick up this illegal alien?
I'm not going to entertain your question.
Yeah. Can we go to Chris?
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I actually believe that what you're saying is quite threatening. It is quite threatening. Really? Can we move on to the next person here?
Excuse me, but no,
And if you continue to behave in such a way, we'll just make sure that we take the appropriate steps. You are threatening and provocative.
This is a question that the real people.
No, this isn't a.
So interesting to watch that exchange play out yesterday as Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson was fielding questions from members of the media. We'll continue to monitor this and bring you it each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning for more Illinois in Focus Daily. Everybody stand by, hoping to connect with a guest live, so we've got to get this engineered, so stay with us. When you go and vote for members of Congress or for members of the General Assembly, you're in a specific district that's drawn by politicians in the state of Illinois. And then they base all that off the U.S. Census. They draw their lines, and then they approve it, and the governor ultimately, enacts that map. So how does that play into the politics and the political makeup of, say, a General Assembly like a state of Illinois, or where members of Congress are going to be coming from throughout the state of Illinois? After the 2020 census, Illinois drew a map. Democrats were crafting it in secret, and then they unveiled it and got an F grade from civic groups for gerrymandering, which is where politicians draw maps to favor them and not to represent voters. Well, now Texas is looking at changing their maps midway through this 10-year cycle, and Governor J.B. Pritzker reacting to that, and we'll talk live with State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer to get his reaction to all of this. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can wake up with us each and every weekday morning here live for Illinois in Focus, where we bring you the headlines to essentially get you plugged in and let you know what's going on here in the state of Illinois. So before we go to Representative Davidsmeyer, I want to set this up a little bit. Governor J.B. Pritzker holding a news conference yesterday, unrelated to politics, but he did a Q&A, and he was asked about the efforts down in Texas, where Texas is considering midway through to possibly change their legislative maps and their congressional maps, which some are saying could give Republicans an advantage in Texas when it comes to the 2026 midterm elections. But Governor Pritzker says that's cheating. Here's Governor Pritzker's full comments from yesterday up in Chicago at an unrelated news conference.
We have to see what they decide to do about Texas, but I think that the President of the United States encouraging Texas being willing to do this, should be an indicator to the rest of us that that if they're going to cheat, that's not a proper way to act, that we're all going to have to band together to try to address that, at least to try to stop them by letting them know that if we were doing what they were doing, that in fact we would counterbalance, indeed take control of the Congress. I think we ought to play by the rules, everybody, and I think we ought to have an election in 2026. We'll see who comes out ahead in the Congress, but I think cheating the way the president wants to is improper. We all ought to stand up against it. People ought to be outraged.
So he says that the president, the Republicans in Texas are cheating. Well, to react to that, joining us now is State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, the Republican from Murrayville. Representative, thanks for being with us. Let me make sure I've got your microphone turned on. And your reaction to the governor saying that, hey, they're wanting to cheat in a state of Illinois where we've got an F grade from civic groups for our gerrymandered maps.
Yeah, Greg, I would say that it takes one to know one. The cheater in chief, J.B. Pritzker, started out when he first ran for office saying that he would never sign a political map that was drawn by politicians. And then what did he do? He signed one of the worst, if not the worst, map in the nation's history. The very first election that we had, Republicans won 40 seats in the House to Democrats 78 seats, but we had tens of thousands of more Republican votes. If that doesn't tell you that they've watered down Republican votes and they've made Republicans less involved, I don't know what does.
Representative, one of your colleagues, Peoria Republican State Representative Ryan Spain, even painted a different picture, kind of similar to what you painted, of Donald Trump got like 45% of the votes in the most recent presidential election, increasing the vote threshold he got in the 2020 and the 2016 election. But that percentage doesn't translate over to how Republicans are represented in the General Assembly. How exactly do Democrats craft those maps to have that be the outcome, where Democrats are ultimately having super duper majorities in the Illinois State House?
Yeah, as I said, this is the most political map in the history of the state of Illinois for sure. And they go behind closed doors and they look at voter registration and things of that sort. And they pluck their voters. They put just enough Republicans in a Democrat district to dilute the vote, so that they don't have to create a new Republican district. And really, at the end of the day, it's wrong whether it's Illinois or it's Texas. The reality is we could have more balanced government if we had districts that were drawn, say, the way that Iowa draws theirs, right? They have a state that's the shape of a rectangle, and the majority of their districts are shaped just the same way, just based on how the population lands. And yes, they probably had, I think, around 40 incumbents that had to run against each other, but it wasn't political. It wasn't one party going after another, and that's the way it should be.
Well, how do we get to that here in Illinois? Obviously, with Democrats and the politics moving forward, they're in control. And despite the governor saying that he wanted fair maps when he was running his first term, doesn't seem to be the case now, especially with the issue of the state getting that F grade from civic groups for gerrymandering.
Yeah, I would say, we need a constitutional amendment that says that we need independent maps, and that politicians can no longer pick their voters. And we've tried that before. We've gone through the process, and it's been kicked off the ballot by the Supreme Court. We did get a little bit of guidance. I think there's an opportunity for the people to rise up, Republican and Democrat, who all think this is wrong. I think it's an 80% issue that people disagree with gerrymandering. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to rise up, do the right thing for all of the people of Illinois. I know that there's a lot of people who are strong Republicans and a lot of people that are strong Democrats, but there's also a lot of people in the middle that really feel left out right now. And that's the impact of this and the lies that Governor Pritzker told years ago when he originally ran for office.
Republican State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer with us here on Illinois in Focus Daily, talking about maps and fair maps and the going back and forth between what's going on in Texas possibly and Governor Pritzker reacting to it. But it sounds like you're almost saying that he's being hypocritical in all of this.
I can come right out and say he's an absolute hypocrite on this issue. Is he the pot or the kettle? That's the reality. He's saying it's wrong when Texas does it, but when he makes one of the worst maps in the nation's history, he's perfectly okay. It's absolutely ridiculous for him to pretend like the last 4 years have been just a natural occurrence because the people of Illinois have gone far left. The people of Illinois have not gone far left. In fact, I think that we're shifting further right as the Democrat majority goes further left. People they want a sense of reality, and they need more voices to bring balance to government and to bring truth to all the issues that we deal with.
Another issue with elections, Representative, is the issue of the 2 weeks that election authorities in Illinois have to vote mail-in ballots after the election, right? Congressman Mike Boss has a lawsuit against this, Judicial Watch part of that, and apparently the DOJ filing in support of them saying, hey, you can't have this 2 weeks. Election day is election day. 2 weeks afterwards is not election day for federal elections. How important is that to this overall conversation about, fair and equal and transparent and just elections processes?
Yeah, there's always talk about, not making sure, not allowing for all voters to get out. The reality is, as an elected official, I want everybody to get out and vote. I think everybody's voice should be heard, but we shouldn't have 60 to 90 days of voting. I think our Constitution talks about election day, and we should really focus on getting people out on election day. And certainly there are times where people are traveling or people are military overseas or something like that. And we certainly can make exceptions to that, but we have to make sure that our elections are fair and safe and provide every opportunity for every individual. I think that we've provided opportunities for kids who are in high school who are of voting age to be able to get out and go vote. The crazy thing about that is we don't even require them to vote. We just say you can get out if you're of voting age. But I think that we should probably do the same thing. Elections are one of the most important things that happen in our nation, and we should encourage all businesses and wherever an individual works to give them the opportunity to vote on election day and get out there.
State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, greatly appreciate you taking time with us here live with Illinois in Focus Daily, and we'll be watching this. Obviously, there was a lawsuit that was filed by Republicans against the map, and it doesn't really seem to be going quite where or as fast as maybe people would like, but obviously there's a lot that's going to be talked about this in the years ahead. Appreciate you taking the time with us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Greg.
It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus Daily, breaking things down for you to stay informed in the land of Lincoln. Exactly is the state of Illinois and mass public transit in the Chicagoland area going to make up a $760 million fiscal cliff that's expected to kick in at the end of this year? Well, some are calling for a special session for legislators to come back and to deal with it and find whatever kind of tax increases they can to help fund that. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus Daily. So go to the website, thecentersquare.com, where you'll find Jim Talamonte's story. Fiscal differences remain as Illinois lawmakers urge for transit special session. And you've got one Illinois state senator, Mike Simmons from Chicago. He, Monday, talking about Chicago Transit Authority and some upgrades that have happened. He said, hey, we need a special session in the state of Illinois. Not October veto session, but a special session.
And I want to take today to obviously mark this important accomplishments for our community, but also we must be sober about the state of our public transit systems. I, as a state senator, am calling on my colleagues to come back to Springfield and have a special session so that we can fully fund public transit. We need a special session today, not next month, and not in the veto session. We can get this done, everybody. If we can make this happen, we can fully fund our public transit systems.
And he was at a kind of groundbreaking of some renovations that were being done on several stations up in Chicago. So what's going on here? We've got, again, the fiscal cliff that mass transit, RTA, CTA, and others, they're facing collectively like $760 million in a fiscal cliff, which is apparently based off of some COVID-19 spending that is no longer there. So, one of the things that people were critical of when all these tax dollars were flying out the door for COVID-19 relief, it was thought there was going to be substantial fraud in all of this, but also governments that were getting this money, they were going to be using those funds for regular operating costs when they really should have used the funds for one-time debt payment, for instance, or one-time projects. But some governments were using those costs for continuation of programs where if you don't have those dollars anymore because COVID-19 dollars are done, how are you going to fund that program? So is that what happened with CTA, RTA, and the entire mass transit district? Regardless, they're facing this cliff, and they say they need this money or there's going to be severe service cuts. Well, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he said there could be a special session on this, but he believes they could possibly get it done in October when they're already scheduled to come back. Legislators coming back to Springfield 2 weeks in October for 6 days. So they'll have veto session where they could tackle this, but they could call a special session. Here's here's Governor J.B. Pritzker being asked about the entire transit issue yesterday at, a transit-related news conference. He was honoring the century of train travel with Union Station up in Chicago. But afterwards, he was asked about the transit fiscal cliff.
Well, if the hard work that's being put in by members of the legislature, working with members of the transit community and with my office, if that is any indication, I'm confident that something will get done. I must say some of the issues are hard, and that is why it takes some time, and frankly, hours and hours and hours have been put in meetings. Sometimes you're aware of those meetings, sometimes you're not. But I feel very confident that we're not going to let transit in the state of Illinois, and I include the rest of Illinois too, fail as a result of a failure to get something done in the legislature.
Now, before they adjourned spring session, they did have a measure that advanced out of the state Senate, but did not advance out of the Illinois House. Back to Jim Talamonte's story at thecentersquare.com. A Senate measure to fund transit with a $1.50 retail delivery tax and real estate transfer taxes failed to clear the legislature during spring session. Again, it passed the House, it passed the Senate, but apparently is dead on arrival in the House. State Senator Don DeWitt sharing a comment to Jim, saying that he's told by members of the House that not only is Senate Bill 3438 dead on arrival, it's been dead and buried. Mass transit is dead in the water until cooler heads on a bipartisan basis can come together to find solutions, and that will not put excessive tax burdens on the residents of this state. So interesting to see how they're going to fund this. What is the funding going to be? You've got Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, very aware of the funding issues with mass transit, but he's pushed for what he's called progressive revenue. What exactly that's going to be, not sure, but here's Johnson yesterday talking about mass transit.
Look, from the very beginning, my administration has been working with Springfield to put forth a package that gives us our fair share, right? 80% of ridership right here in our region, right? So there has to be an equitable distribution of resources coming from the state of Illinois to make sure that we have an accessible, affordable, reliable, safe public transportation system. We are talking with the members of the House of Representatives, the sponsors, looking at ways in which the governance structure is fully reformed, but also ensuring that we have revenue packages that allow for us to be able to optimize our public transportation system. We have been rolling up our sleeves from the moment that we stepped into this office, and we're going to continue to work with all of our partners to ensure that our transportation system is equitably funded.
So how's that going to be equitably funded? Progressive revenue from the states, or what about the possibility of, allowing video gambling machines in Chicago where they could possibly draw those revenues into public transit? Or is it going to be a real estate transfer tax, for instance, for the suburbs, which the realtors are pushing against? Or is it going to be a retail delivery tax that people down in Cairo would have to pay if they get an Amazon delivery, and that would go to fund Chicago mass transit? That's like 500 miles away. But anyways, so how is this going to be funded? A lot of questions, not many answers at this point, but if they do call a special session, we'll be there with the Center Square on the ground in Springfield. When they're there, I'm there, and we're running around with cameras and microphones and bringing you the latest. That's what we do here with the Center Square. Go to the website, thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter in your inbox, and if you're feeling generous, donate. We're a nonprofit newswire service dedicated to informing the public on how their tax dollars are being spent by state government and beyond. So go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter, donate. Here on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us for more Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, that's all I got for you on this Wednesday. I still have some segments that we'll do tomorrow and Friday from the Aurora Sportsman's Club where I was at over the weekend, and some pretty interesting stuff, especially the practical rifle range. I also talked with a security expert who utilizes the range quite a bit, so we'll have that for Thursday and Friday. So back at it here with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for being here each and every weekday morning. You guys keep the live chat lively, and be sure to like, subscribe, and share it up. All right, it's right here each and every weekday morning, 8 o'clock. We'll be here tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. All right, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and gosh, that heat. I went out and mowed yesterday after work. Whew. I was drenched from head to toe, drained. Glad I got that done because the heat's a-coming. We got, triple-digit heat indexes all across the state for the next few days or something. Whew, it's gonna be pretty wicked out there. So be sure to stay hydrated, check on your neighbors, and just be safe. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'll see you guys here tomorrow. Just real quick, question that Tenebris asked on the live chat. Did I do a 3-gun run at Aurora? No, somebody asked, what are you shooting? And I said, got my camera, I said, film? Wasn't really film, it's digital, but anyways. Maybe sometime I'll do a 3-gun challenge. We'll check that out. All right, have a great day, guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow.